is that social media has been a ride, utterly beside itself, celebrating the downfall of the 90s. We are officially over all the old heads talking about the sport. Specifically, how much better the 90s and 80s and the older eras of basketball were compared to now. Because now we went back and checked, we went back and looked. We took time to actually not just watch highlights, but watch full-blown games, finals games, random games. We've been bamboozled. We've been fooled. That's what's the sentiment. That's the sentiment. We have been fooled, hoodwinked, led astray by the older community, by the eras past. Is that a valid sentiment? Is that really how the basketball world should be viewing the older eras of basketball now? And we need to pump the brakes a little bit because it's not. It's not valid. It's not. It shouldn't be seen that the going back and looking at the basketball, it shouldn't be seen as, oh, they just all suck. No, that's terrible. We shouldn't be degrading these older players' legacies. We shouldn't be degrading or downplaying the abilities that these players had when they were at their best in the 90s, in the 80s. No, we shouldn't. We shouldn't be saying that. However, that doesn't mean that some of the statements aren't valid about the era. We were led to believe that it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. We were led to believe that there wasn't defense, or that there was defense then and there wasn't defense now. We were led to believe that there was a lot of times when we are soft. We don't care. We cry to the refs. We, in the current generation, were led by the past generation to say that you all don't know real ball. And that was an outright lie. You look through nostalgia tinted glasses and let yourself believe that the game had not improved. You let yourself believe in the very narrative to save your own era. And that's not right either. Basketball, for every time and for every era, has a distinct heartbeat. And as time goes on, that heartbeat gets healthier and healthier and healthier. And by that I mean the game evolves and changes and gets better and better and better. It improves upon, it compounds upon itself. And it gets better. So for you all to say that we now don't know real ball is outright ludicrous. If you're an old head going about that same mentality of thought, it's ridiculous. No, it's stupid. It's dumb. It's absolutely dumb. On the whole, the NBA now is completely head and shoulders above the skill level that we saw players in the past. There are, most centers can do to some degree what we see guards do. Most of them. And a lot of the positions that you had in the older NBA, like the 90s, like the 80s, like the 70s, are now obsolete. A strictly only defensive player is not viable in today's NBA by coaches or players. Due to, if you don't have any offensive game at all, you become a complete liability. And the amount of effect that you have to have defensively has to be on the level of a Draymond Green. And even with him being defensively sound, offensively, he was the quote unquote point guard, or by that I mean the man to help facilitate and run the entirety of that offense. And his IQ was through the roof. Not just on one side of the floor, but on both. And before the complete downfall of his offensive game, he was giving you 37 in game 7 of the NBA Finals. He could shoot still. On top of all those other things, on top of being defensive player of the year. He was a more versatile scorer up until that 2016 season, which after that, he just went completely down. I don't know what the world at. But the point is, even with him being defensively minded, still had more offensive ability than we saw most defensively minded and centric players of the past. No offensive game whatsoever. You're seen as not viable in today's league, which a lot of players were. And that's not a knock on them. Understand that is because of the time. That's just the truth. It's because of the time. The time of the league made it so that rules were different. Hence, you can't do everything that you're doing now. And specialized players could still have a place. to a degree because everybody couldn't practice everything due to the rules. And even with, on average, the players at their specific positions, like guards that we know dominate the league today, the rules were different to where they couldn't even do everything that they wanted to do. Magic Johnson, you go back and watch him dribble, it seems like he doesn't know what he's doing. But in the confines of the rules, he was a magician. And if he had the freedom to dribble like we dribble now, with the way that you can't actually put your hand under the ball, with the way that you can have 3 steps together instead of only strictly 2, a 0 step or a gather step, and then 2 steps after that. With the freedom of movement on top of the spacing, on top of the more offensive centric game that the rules have been pushed to, we could very well have seen him do exactly what we do now. But the point is, he didn't, because he wasn't able to, because of the rules. But that's what he played in. It's just the truth. It's not. It shouldn't be a critique against them, but at the same time, you all shouldn't be, in terms of people that downgrade today's NBA and today's greats, shouldn't get on our greats and say that they suck either, because objectively, they have more overall skill sets than you in your era, and I'm going against people who, on the whole, have a wider variety of talent than you do. It's just the truth. People like Jordan, people like Dominique Wilkins, people like Dr. J. Great. Absolutely. And they built upon each other. Dr. J built on Connie Hawkins. Jordan built on Dr. J. It is what it is. It is exactly what we see in the game and the evolution that we're talking about. It's not bad. But to consistently berate and talk down on today's generation, understanding that your era was completely different under a whole new guise of rules that makes your era look ancient. It does. 90s basketball now, just watching it, isn't as pretty as we all said or lauded it to be, myself included. You all brought this on yourself in terms of old heads and older people who consistently, players as well, coaches as well, who were from the 90s and 80s, and who continually downplayed this level of basketball, continued to downplay this era, who hated, not just critiqued, hated LeBron, hated Steph Curry, hated shooting threes, hated having the ability to, oh, you didn't play defense then. When, remember, in your era, 80s and 90s, in 70s, illegal defense was a thing. You couldn't play zone. We have more complex defense than we ever did in that era of basketball. Either you doubled or you were left on an island. If you tried to play zone, it was illegal, and you couldn't do it. No wonder Michael Jordan would be able to be one of the most dominant scorers in NBA history. Not taken away from his ability, because it is still his ability. That wouldn't change. But the rules also helped him, because of they let him be able to isolate without any hindrance. Let somebody like a LeBron be forced to play in isolation with only, and you can't zone and you can't double, or excuse me, you can either man him or double him and have no other option. You're not stopping him. Kobe, you're not stopping him. Jason Tatum, you're not stopping him. Kyrie Irving, you're not stopping him. If we had those same rules today, it just doesn't work. We're putting the complexity and the movability and the outright flexibility that defenses have now is vastly more sophisticated than it was back then. Yes, we have defense now. Effort could be a problem. Effort is a problem in today's NBA. Absolutely. No doubt about it. I hate that fact. Effort is a problem for the players specifically. If they gave more effort and given more defensive freedom. Again, NBA is looking into changing their rules as a league. Understand it. On the defensive side, to allow more defensive presence in NBA games. Love that. Make it so that you can have more physicality, and players that are strong can use their strength on the perimeter, rather than making it so that we can't do anything on the perimeter. Be more stringent on carries and travels by players. Refs as a whole be more stringent on screens, whether they're illegal or not. That helps immensely in the nature of the game. And doesn't let offenses get away with things that defense never gets away with. That type of stuff can help fix defense. And as well as player effort as a whole gets more active and becomes more prioritized. But because it's an offensively driven league, again, the league did this to themselves by continually mounting up rules to help the offense out and provide more scoring. They did this to themselves. They caused this problem. They're the root cause of why we are where we are in terms of players' mentalities on the defensive end. We have people that can be, we have a bunch of people that can be elite defenders. They just don't give effort. Individual. We have a bunch of athletic freaks of nature that if they committed themselves, they could be insane defenders. More on average length and strength and speed than we've ever seen in the NBA in the history of the league. That is undeniable. That's undeniable. That's not, you can't fight that. But the mentality has been, we need offense to win. From players, coaches, fans, and the league as a whole. The commissioner. Now they're trying to wrap it back to, let's give defense a real incentive. Which is phenomenal. Changes can be made. Changes need to be made. It's not the question, but it's not the problem. Problem is, you all are consistently saying that this era is weak in everything under the sun. But your era would not, in terms of the evolution of the game, is not on this era's level. Outright talent. Overall skill sets of players. 7-footers shooting threes and spreading out the offense. 7-footers, 6'10", 6'11", like Nikola Jokic, taking the ball over the floor. We saw and heard about Shaq doing it sometimes, but it wasn't often. It wasn't often. We're seeing Nikola Jokic take the ball up the floor nearly every time that niggas play. Joel Embiid take the ball up the floor. Wembanyama, my gosh. Giannis Antetokounmpo. We're seeing this on a consistent basis. Centers, power forwards, big men taking the ball up the floor. Big men stretching the floor. Positionless basketball, what's talked about now. Because everybody can do everything, nearly. Everybody can shoot to some degree. Everybody can pass to some degree. Everybody can score to some degree. You say, oh, that was the same in the older. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't at all. No, it was not at all. Absolutely not. It wasn't like that. Not this wide of every single player has a guard level skill set to some degree. It wasn't like that at all. That's completely different. It's completely different now. It's completely better now. This era has its flaws. So did the 90s. So did the 80s. So did the 70s. Any great would still dominate. Understand that this whole thing is not just because we're hating on an era. No. Any great in an era would still dominate in any era. Sean Kemp would still be Sean Kemp. Gary Payton would still be Gary Payton. Jordan would still be Jordan. Drexler would be Drexler. Hakeem, Shaq. We can go down the list. We can go down the list. Pippen would still be great. The greats would still be great regardless of era. And the people that played then, like Dragan Petrovic, like Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, like Allen Iverson, they would dominate even more to what they were already due to the nature of today's game. It's just the truth. But because the freedom that offense has and the more spacing and the more dynamic styles and the more guard-driven ability and just as a whole, freedom that offensive players have today that you all just didn't have in the past. You all would still be great today. I'm not debating that. But for you to say that if you put LeBron or any modern great right now in that era of basketball, in the 90s, in the 80s, in the 70s, that they just wouldn't be able to compete is ludicrous and stupid. If you think they look great now with how they are right now, you put people like they are right now, you put LeBron like he is right now, near the end of his career, LeBron, in that era of basketball, brother, he most likely ends the debate for the GOAT conversation while he's there at this age. Giannis at that point in time, nobody stopped him. Kyrie Irving in the 90s or 80s, killing everybody. There's no Nikola Jokic then would still be dominating like Nikola Jokic now. But him stretching the floor like he would be, while also having the size and passing ability, insane to see. Would be stupid. A wizard. This is not a knock against your era. This is understanding that you all need to stop putting down an era of basketball in the modern day that you all never got to in your own day. Because it wasn't the same game. You brought this on yourself if you were one of those people that kept on hating on LeBron for the argument of Jordan, downplaying anything that anybody did today, and all this stuff, due to the fact that your game was so different. And the rules that you had relegated you to something to what you not to something, relegated you to what you saw and what you could do. And you all were still great. Absolutely. We build upon the shoulders of what was in the past. You all were one of the building blocks. Each era was one of the building blocks. But to downgrade our era to your era is ludicrous. It's ridiculous. A lot of people are getting hurt over the fact that their favorite era of basketball has been trashed or being tarnished or being disrespected. But you all did this for 20 years. From my getting into basketball from 2005 on, you all hated our game. Hated it. Hated it. You hated LeBron. You hated anything to do with today's basketball. You hated three-point shooting. You hated Kobe Bryant. You hated everything. Called him a carbon copy as a degrading statement. You hated shooting threes for big men. You hated it. You despised it. Everything that we did, the dribbling, the pace, all of it, the offensive style. Even when we had a seemingly perfect medium between like 2000 and 2004 of defense, still, you hated it. Got on everybody. And anybody that was even seemingly great called him a crybaby, called him a punk, called him whiny, and used everything possible to discredit what their abilities were. You did that for 20 odd years. Now we see today's game or today's fans going back and watching your product and saying that it's not the same game and that it is very much comparative to now, more rudimentary, which is true, and more simplified in terms of the skill sets of players, which is true. Pointing out flaws in your great game, which are true. That's it. It's true. And you're getting hurt over that? Over what you did to us? It's ridiculous. And it's thin skin. You acting like the punks that you said the NBA players were. You acting like the whiny people that you were calling people like LeBron, people like Kobe, even people like Steph, Jason Tatum, whatever you want to, any era of basketball, Dwayne Wade. We can go down and list of every single great that played in the modern day aspect of basketball, and you called them nothing. Now we go and critique your era and you can't take it. Shame on you. Shut up and sit down. Now that that's the case, shut up and sit down. You have no right. If you can't take, and justifiably so, the critiques on an era that was a bygone era 20 years ago, and you want to still hold on to that as the best basketball in the world, you are stupid and don't deserve to talk about ball. You don't. Sit down and shut up. It's ridiculous and stupid to say that. It is insanely ignorant of you as being a bum to be able to go and have that mentality and hold that as Bible. That is ridiculous and stupid. You are ridiculous and stupid if that is how you think, because it's not how it's supposed to be. Stop discrediting every era of basketball. Appreciate what you got. Appreciate Braun. Appreciate Tatum. Appreciate Giannis. Just like you appreciate Jordan, Bird, Magic, Hakeem. We can go tit for tat for who, what great would beat what great. Because all the greats would translate to each other, because any great would be great in any era. But it's the fact that you continually chose to bully and nullify any achievement that we have, even to this day. Even to this day. And it's because of Jordan fans, a big majority of the time. It is. It's because of Jordan fans more often than not that we're having this pushback and sentiment of your era sucked. It's because of them. Let's not mince words about it. They're the loudest ones that got to say that we suck in today's era. We don't know what we're talking about. We don't know what we're saying. Our ball ain't real ball. We don't know basketball really. What you're saying now is stupid. A degradation of the game. A hypocrisy of basketball. It's ridiculous. That was the sentiment. That is the sentiment by people. And then you all, in terms of people that held that mentality, chose to stick by that. And now we're going to critique, rightfully so, your brand of basketball, your era of ball, and say that watching it now, it doesn't compare to what we see today. And it doesn't. But you didn't get hurt about it, and now you saying that, oh, you attacking, how dare you attack this hollowed era? It's ridiculous and stupid. You need to shut up and sit down. You're acting like a bum. You are. You're acting like a bum. Because you brought this on yourself and said that, oh, we don't know what we're watching. Okay. What's real basketball? Your era, we watched your era. And it doesn't compete in terms of how the game was. Not your greats. How the game was. It's not the same. At all. We're better as a league as a whole. We're seeing people with Jordan's athleticism riding the bench. We are in the G League. More talented, bigger, faster, stronger, and has more history of the game available to them than ever before. More versatile in their skill sets. Everybody can shoot to some degree. Even the bad shooters can still take shots and make them. This is not a knock on any era. This is a wake-up call to say respect every era. Respect every great. Respect the times that they were in and appreciate them. That's what I did. That's why I got an unbiased opinion of ball now, or just of sports in general, apparently. Because the reality situation, we're not done with the 90s. We're not done with any era of basketball. We just have to understand now to put your pitchforks down and stop trying to ride your own era so hard that you go and hate and discredit every other era. Because if you want to play that game, you'll never be able to win. Because your era will be seen as the worst of the bunch. Because of the evolution of the game, which is natural. But in every contextualized sense, when you look at basketball and appreciate it for what it is, for what the game was for the time, now you can see the beauty of the sport. That's how it's supposed to be seen.